The champagne glasses rose into the air just as my world began to fall apart. To Claire, Margaret Bennett announced with a bright smile, "The woman who saved our company and gave this family a future." Applause filled the ballroom. I clapped too, not because I felt proud, because I had become good at pretending. The hotel was packed with investors, executives, reporters, and business partners. Every table held expensive flowers, polished silverware, and people dressed like success itself. I didn't belong in their eyes. That much was obvious. Claire stood beside her mother in a navy blue dress that caught every light in the room. She looked confident, beautiful, and completely at home. 6 years ago, she used to search for me in every crowded room. Tonight, she hadn't looked my way once. A waiter passed by with drinks. I reached for a glass. Before I could take one, Damian Brooks stepped beside me with an easy smile that never reached his eyes. There he is. Several guests turned toward us. The luckiest unemployed boyfriend alive. A few people laughed. Another man leaned closer. "Seriously, Ethan, how does it feel dating the boss?" Someone else added, "I'd retire too if I found a woman willing to pay my bills." More laughter. The words landed like tiny cuts. Not deep enough to kill, just enough to remind me I was bleeding. Damien raised his glass. "Here's to finding someone who believes in you." His grin widened, even when nobody else does. The crowd laughed again. I forced a smile because I had practiced that smile for years. It was easier than explaining myself. Across the room, Claire heard every word. Our eyes finally met. For one small moment, I waited. I waited for her to tell them to stop. I waited for her to remind everyone that I wasn't some lazy man living off her success. Instead, she smiled. A quiet laugh escaped her lips before she looked back toward Damien. Something inside me became very still. Margaret walked over carrying another glass. "Oh, Ethan." Her voice carried just enough for nearby guests to hear. "I've always wondered." She tilted her head. "What exactly do you do all day?" Nobody interrupted her. She continued. "Claire works 16-hour days." Another polite smile. "You must have plenty of time to relax." A few more chuckles floated through the room. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. What could I say? That I handled problems nobody knew existed? That I spent countless nights fixing disasters before they reached Claire's desk? That every time she called me exhausted, I dropped everything to help? None of that mattered if nobody could see it. Claire stepped closer. For one hopeful second, I thought she might finally end this. Instead, she adjusted Damien's tie where a wrinkle had formed. "Mom," she laughed softly. "Don't embarrass him. Not defend me. Not protect me. Don't embarrass him." The difference hurt. Damien placed a hand on my shoulder. No hard feelings. His fingers squeezed a little tighter than necessary. "We all have different talents." I nodded once. "Congratulations on the merger." He smiled proudly. "It'll make history." Claire beamed beside him. Watching them together felt strangely familiar. Not because they were holding hands, because they looked like partners. Real partners. The kind people respected. I suddenly wondered when Claire had stopped looking at me that way. The rest of the evening passed like a dream I wanted to wake from. People congratulated Claire. Investors surrounded Damien. Margaret introduced successful executives to everyone except me. Whenever someone asked who I was, Claire answered with a quick smile. "This is Ethan." Nothing more. Not my partner. Not the man I love. Just Ethan. By the time we reached the apartment, it was nearly 11. Neither of us spoke during the drive. The silence inside the car carried more weight than every joke from the party. Claire walked inside first. Her heels clicked across the hardwood floor. "I'll shower." No kiss. No question about how I was feeling. Just another item on her schedule. The dining table caught my attention. Dinner sat exactly where I'd left it before the party. 2 plates. Pasta. Garlic bread. Everything cold. I had cooked it that afternoon because I thought we'd celebrate together afterward. Instead, we celebrated with strangers. I pulled out a chair. The food had become stiff and dry. Much like us. Claire came back wearing comfortable clothes, phone already glowing in her hand. Her fingers moved quickly across the screen. A small smile appeared. Another message. Another reply. You've been texting all night. She barely looked up. Work. Damien? A short pause. Yes. Nothing more. The conversation ended before it had really begun. I picked up my own phone. 7 unread messages. Every one of them from me. Sent throughout the day. Good luck today. Hope you're eating. Need anything before tonight? Proud of you. See you soon. Not one reply. I laughed quietly. The sound surprised even me. Claire glanced over. What? Nothing. Because explaining disappointment to someone who no longer noticed it felt pointless. She returned to her phone. The room filled with tiny keyboard taps. I carried the cold plates into the kitchen. Neither of us touched dinner. While putting away leftovers, I noticed a folder sticking out beneath several work files on the counter. A wedding venue brochure. The place we'd visited together 3 months earlier. The corner had been folded. Coffee stains covered the front. It looked forgotten. I held it for a long moment before placing it back exactly where I'd found it. Maybe that was our relationship now. Something planned, then buried under work. Later, I opened my dresser. Inside the top drawer rested a small velvet box. The engagement ring. I'd saved for almost a year to buy it. Every overtime job, every canceled vacation, every sacrifice, all hidden inside that tiny diamond. My thumb brushed across the lid. Not tonight. Maybe. Not ever. Claire passed the bedroom doorway. I'm exhausted. She climbed into bed without another word. Within minutes, the glow from her phone finally disappeared. I stayed awake. Sleep refused to come. Instead, I wandered into the living room. Moonlight spilled across the coffee table where Claire had left several folders from work. One had slipped onto the floor. I bent down to pick it up. Papers scattered across the rug. Confidential. Financial records. Investment summaries. One page caught my attention immediately. A document from years ago. Someone had carefully blacked out the investor's name, but they had missed something: the payment schedule, the account numbers, the handwritten notes in the margin. My breathing slowed. No one else would recognize those details. I did, because they were mine. The papers refused to leave my hands. Moonlight spilled across the living room floor, while every number on those documents pulled me back 6 years. I knew that account. I knew that signature. Even with the investor's name covered by black ink, I could still recognize the tiny note written in the corner. Protect ownership until company becomes stable. I had written those words myself. A bitter laugh escaped before I could stop it. All these years, everyone believed I had done nothing. The truth had been sitting inside Claire's own apartment. Hidden, forgotten, almost erased. I carefully gathered every page and returned them to the folder exactly as I had found them. Claire was still asleep. The apartment felt colder than usual. Not because of the weather, because I suddenly realized how lonely I had become inside the place we once called home. Sleep never came. Instead, dawn arrived. The first light through the windows reminded me of another morning years ago. A much happier one. Back then, Noah and I were sitting inside a tiny coffee shop near our old college. My laptop rested between us. So, he leaned forward with a grin. They actually bought your company. I nodded. Yesterday. How much? I quietly told him the number. His eyes nearly jumped out of his head. Ethan, he lowered his voice. That's enough money to change your life. I smiled. It already has. He misunderstood. You buying a house? I shook my head. A ring. Another smile. No. What then? I pulled another folder from my backpack. Claire's family company. Its debts. The overdue loans. The notices from the bank. Noah stared at every page. Then at me. You've got to be kidding. I'm helping them. His expression changed immediately. You're investing? Quietly. He closed the folder. No. I blinked. No. This is a terrible idea. They need help. They need investors. They won't get one. He folded his arms. So let them know it's you. I looked through the cafe window. Claire was walking across campus with books against her chest. She looked tired even back then. Working classes. Helping her family. Trying to save a company already sinking. I don't want her to feel like she owes me. Noah sighed. Ethan, I love her. I know. I want her to stand proudly. He rubbed both hands across his face. Love isn't supposed to make you disappear. I laughed. It won't. His answer came almost immediately. That's exactly what you're doing. The memory faded as my phone alarm pulled me back to the present. I got ready for work without waking Claire. Before leaving, I stopped beside the bedroom door. She was sleeping peacefully. Part of me wanted to wake her, to place those documents on the bed, to finally tell her everything. Instead, I quietly closed the door. The office was already busy when I arrived. People rushed between meeting rooms carrying charts and laptops. Everyone talked about one thing: the merger. Damien walked through the hallway surrounded by executives. He noticed me immediately. Ethan. That polished smile returned. Big day. I heard. This merger will change everything. His confidence almost sounded like a warning. Claire joined him moments later. She looked exhausted. Dark circles rested beneath her eyes. Morning. The greeting was polite. Nothing more. Damien checked his watch. I'll let you two catch up. He disappeared into another office. Claire opened her tablet. I've got 5 minutes. 5 minutes. That was apparently all 6 years had become. I reached into my bag. There are documents you need to see. She barely glanced up. What documents? Old investment records. I'm busy. They're important. A slow breath escaped her lips. Ethan. Her voice stayed calm. Is this about last night? It isn't just about last night. It feels like it. She finally met my eyes. If this is another problem with Damien, it isn't about him. You've been acting strange ever since he joined the company. I've been acting invisible. The words slipped out before I could stop them. She blinked. I don't know what you want from me. The truth. What truth? I placed one copied page in front of her. She barely read the first few lines, then pushed it back. I don't understand financial contracts. You don't recognize this? It's old paperwork. It saved your company. Her patience began fading. Ethan. A phone buzzed. Damien's name flashed across her screen. She answered immediately. I'm coming. Another pause. No, we'll review it together. She stood. We'll finish this later. The paper remained on the table, untouched. I watched her leave. She never looked back. That afternoon, I visited an old storage building downtown. Most people would have forgotten it existed. I hadn't. Inside sat dozens of locked filing cabinets from the legal office that handled my startup sale years earlier. The receptionist smiled politely. Can I help you? I need copies of several archived contracts. She searched the computer. It may take a while. I'll wait. Boxes arrived one after another. Dust covered every folder. Hours passed. Then I finally found it. The original investment agreement. My signature. The bank transfer. Every legal protection. Every ownership clause. Everything. I rested my hand on the old paper. The ink had faded slightly. The truth hadn't. As I organized the documents, another item slipped from the folder. A printed photograph. Claire and me. College graduation. She was hugging me while laughing at something outside the camera. I remembered that day. She believed our future would always be simple. Neither of us knew how expensive silence could become. I slipped the photo back inside, not because I wanted to keep living in the past, because it reminded me why I had made every sacrifice. Outside the building, my phone opened to Claire's contact. My thumb hovered over the screen. Delete contact. The option stared back at me. One tap. That was all it would take. Instead, I locked the phone. Not yet. There were still answers I needed. That evening, I carried every copied document into my apartment. I bought a heavy metal lockbox on the way home. One by one, I placed each paper inside. Startup sale agreement, investment contract, ownership clauses, bank confirmations, legal correspondence, years of hidden truth. The lid closed with a sharp click. No more hiding them in drawers. No more pretending they didn't matter. Just then, my phone rang. An unknown number. I almost ignored it. Something told me not to. Hello. A calm, older voice answered. Ethan Carter? Yes. This is Richard Lawson. The name hit me instantly. The attorney who handled everything 6 years ago. I've been trying to reach you. My grip tightened around the phone. Is something wrong? A short pause. Then the sentence that changed everything. The ownership rights were never transferred. The call ended. My hand stayed around the phone long after the screen went dark. The ownership rights were never transferred. Those 7 words echoed through my apartment. For years, I believed I had given everything away. Instead, the law still recognized me as the original controlling investor. I sat beside the locked metal box holding every contract I had hidden from the world. It wasn't victory. Not yet. It was simply the truth waiting for its turn. Claire left 2 days later for another business trip. Damien picked her up before sunrise. Their voices drifted into the apartment from the hallway. "You packed everything?" "Almost. We'll finish the merger this time." "I hope so." The elevator doors closed. The apartment became quiet. I stood in the kitchen for another minute. There was no dramatic goodbye. No kiss before leaving. She hadn't even noticed that I never wished her a safe trip. The front door clicked shut behind me. I walked into the bedroom. One suitcase rested beside the bed. Empty. I opened the closet. Half of it belonged to me. Within an hour, only empty hangers remained. Every folded shirt disappeared into the suitcase. Every book found a place inside another box. The apartment slowly stopped looking like home. The framed photograph above the dresser caught my attention. Claire and I were standing on a beach. Our faces were covered with sand after trying, and failing, to build a perfect sandcastle. She laughed so hard that day, she nearly fell into the water. I remembered thinking life could stay that simple forever. I lifted the frame from the wall. A pale square remained where sunlight had never reached. Funny, even the wall remembered us. The photograph went into a storage box. Not because I wanted to erase those memories. Because memories deserve better than pretending everything was still fine. My phone buzzed. "Noah, you sound tired." "I am." "You finally talked to the lawyer?" "Yes." And I closed my eyes. He confirmed everything. A long whistle came through the speaker. "So what now?" "I'm leaving." Another pause. "I've waited years to hear you say that. It doesn't feel like winning." "No." His voice softened. "It feels like surviving." I smiled for the first time in days. "You warned me. I remember. You told me invisible sacrifice would make me invisible." And I hated being right. Neither of us spoke for a few seconds. Then he cleared his throat. "Need help moving? I'd appreciate it. I'll be there in 20. By noon, the apartment looked almost empty. Boxes lined the hallway. Noah carried another one toward the elevator. "You really owned all this?" I laughed quietly. "I forgot how many books I had." "You forgot a lot of things." He nodded toward the bedroom. "Like your own worth." His words landed gently. Not like criticism. Like someone helping me remember who I used to be. Only one thing remained inside the dresser. The velvet ring box. I picked it up carefully. The diamond still caught the light. For months, I had imagined placing it on Claire's finger. Now it felt strangely heavy. I carried it into the bedroom. Her nightstand held a novel she never finished reading. Beside it sat the ring. No note. No explanation. Just the future we never reached. The next stop was the bank. A stack of documents waited for my signature. The financial advisor adjusted his glasses. "You're requesting to remove yourself from all shared accounts?" "Yes." "And cancel the joint savings plan?" "Yes." He slid another page toward me. "This will also end your financial responsibility for the apartment lease." I signed every line without rushing. Each signature closed another door. Not with anger, with acceptance. When the last page disappeared into his folder, I breathed a little easier. 3 days later, I moved into a smaller apartment across town. Nothing fancy, just clean walls, quiet streets, a balcony overlooking a small park. The place smelled like fresh paint instead of old arguments. One suitcase rested near the couch. Everything I truly needed fit inside it. That realization surprised me. Richard Lawson arranged a meeting with another legal consultant. Her name was Olivia Grant. She welcomed me into a conference room filled with neatly organized files. "I'm sorry we never met years ago." She offered a professional smile. "I reviewed your documents. So you've seen everything." "I have." She opened a binder. "The paperwork is exceptionally thorough. I wanted Claire's company protected. You protected it very well." She turned another page. "Perhaps too well." "What do you mean?" The ownership clauses remained active because no final transfer agreement was ever completed. She tapped one document. Legally speaking, another pause. You still control the original investment. I stared at the papers. So, why is this coming up now? Because of the merger. She slid several newer contracts toward me. These proposed changes conflict with your existing rights. My heartbeat slowed. Meaning, the merger cannot legally proceed without resolving your position. Damien had built months of negotiations on paperwork that ignored my existence. Olivia folded her hands. Someone should have found this years ago. They didn't. No. Her expression became thoughtful. They assumed there was nothing to find. Meanwhile, the company's problems quietly began growing. I heard about them through Noah. Investors are asking strange questions. About what? Money. He leaned against my kitchen counter while eating takeout. Some old funding records don't match the merger reports. I nodded. They're starting to notice. Damien looked nervous today. Good. And Claire? His voice slowed. She seems exhausted. A small part of me wanted to ask whether she had been eating, whether she had been sleeping. Instead, I opened another moving box. Those questions no longer belonged to me. The missed calls began that evening. Claire. Again. Then another. 5 calls. 7 messages. Where are you? Why isn't your stuff here? Call me. Ethan, this isn't funny. I read every message. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. No reply came. She called again. The phone vibrated across the table. I watched the screen until it went dark. The next morning I opened my contacts. Claire Bennett. A familiar smile in the tiny profile picture. One last reminder of the woman I had loved. Delete contact. The confirmation box appeared. My finger rested above it. Years together. Thousands of conversations. Countless promises. Reduced to one small button. I pressed it. The name disappeared. The phone felt lighter. So did my heart. Later that afternoon, Olivia called. They've requested the original investment files. Who? The executive board. I stood by my apartment window. And Claire. She attended the meeting. Olivia took a slow breath. She refused to believe the anonymous investor was you. I closed my eyes. I expected that. There was one more development. What happened? They found the original contract. My grip tightened around the phone, the page with the signature. A short silence followed. Then Olivia spoke again. Claire recognized your handwriting before anyone said your name. The boardroom was already full when I arrived. People who had ignored me for years now watched every step I took. Investors whispered behind polished folders. Executives avoided my eyes. Even the receptionist who once treated me like a visitor stood and quietly opened the door. Mr. Carter, they're waiting. The title sounded strange. Not because I hadn't earned it, because no one had ever bothered to use it before. I walked into the room carrying one briefcase. Everything that mattered was inside it. At the far end of the long table sat Claire. Dark circles framed her tired eyes. The confidence she once carried into every meeting had faded. Beside her sat Margaret, perfectly dressed as always, though her hands stayed tightly folded. Damien leaned back in his chair with forced calm. His smile looked practiced, not natural. Richard Lawson stood near the projector. Olivia organized several thick binders across the table. The room settled as the meeting officially began. One board member adjusted his glasses. We've called this emergency session to address serious concerns regarding ownership records, historical investments, and the pending merger. A large screen lit up behind him. The first document appeared. The original investment agreement. No black ink covered the investor's name anymore. There it was, Ethan Carter. The room became so quiet that I could hear the projector humming. Margaret stared at the screen. Her lips moved without sound. No! Another page appeared. Bank transfer confirmations. Legal agreements. Ownership clauses. Every document carried my signature. Richard stepped forward. These records have been verified through the original financial institution, legal archives, and corporate filings. Another board member slowly nodded. There is no dispute regarding their authenticity. Damien straightened in his chair. This has to be some mistake. Olivia calmly opened another folder. It isn't. She placed certified copies in front of every shareholder. The investment saved the company from bankruptcy 6 years ago. One investor flipped through the pages. I never knew there was a private investor. There wasn't, I answered quietly. There was an anonymous one. Every face turned toward me. Claire finally spoke. You. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. You were the investor? I met her eyes. Yes. She searched my face as though expecting me to laugh and admit it was all some misunderstanding. Nothing changed. The truth stayed exactly where it had always been. Margaret slowly shook her head. Why would you hide something like this? Because I loved your daughter. The answer came without anger. I wanted her to succeed because of her own work. Another pause. I never wanted gratitude. Margaret lowered her eyes. The woman who had questioned my worth only days earlier could no longer find words. Richard continued. The original agreement also included protective ownership clauses. The screen changed again. Highlighted sections filled the wall. One sentence stood out clearly. Ownership remains with the original investor unless formally transferred through a signed release. Richard looked around the room. No release was ever signed. A shareholder leaned forward. Meaning? Olivia answered before anyone else could. Mr. Carter legally retains controlling rights over the original investment. Quiet disbelief spread around the table. One executive removed his glasses. Another slowly closed his notebook. Everything they believed about the company had changed in less than 10 minutes. Damien cleared his throat. This changes nothing. His confidence sounded weaker now. The merger is already moving forward. Richard turned another page. Actually, he pointed towards several financial reports. It changes everything. Charts appeared on the screen. Expense records. Internal transfers. Executive bonuses. The atmosphere shifted immediately. Olivia calmly addressed the board. Our review uncovered inconsistencies within the merger preparation. She tapped several highlighted lines. Large consulting payments approved without full disclosure. Another page. Private contracts benefiting one executive. Then another. Financial projections altered before investor presentations. Every arrow pointed toward one name. Damien Brooks. He leaned forward so quickly that his chair rolled backward. This proves nothing. It proves enough to investigate. Olivia's voice remained steady. The accounting department has already confirmed several unauthorized changes. One investor frowned. You signed these reports. Damien swallowed. They were preliminary. They were submitted as final. The room grew heavier with every page. No dramatic shouting. No slammed fists. Just facts. One after another. Impossible to ignore. Claire slowly picked up one report. Her fingers trembled. You told me these numbers were reviewed. Damien avoided her eyes. I believe they were. You asked me to present them. They looked accurate. Her breathing became uneven. You used my signature. No answer came. The silence around him finally exposed what confidence had hidden for months. Margaret closed her eyes. Everything she had admired in Damien was falling apart. One board member spoke firmly. Mr. Brooks. He pointed toward the exit. Your authority is suspended immediately pending a full investigation. Damien stood. This is ridiculous. Nobody moved. Nobody defended him. Security entered quietly. No shouting. No struggle. He placed his office key on the table. The small piece of metal echoed louder than any argument. Without another word, he walked out. The door closed behind him. No one followed. The meeting continued. Attention shifted toward me. Another shareholder folded his hands. Mr. Carter. His tone carried genuine respect. What would you like to do with your ownership rights? Every eye stayed on me. This was the moment many expected revenge. Years of humiliation. Years of being called useless. One signature could destroy careers. Another could take complete control. I opened the folder in front of me. Inside rested new ownership papers prepared by Richard and Olivia. I signed them calmly, not to punish anyone, to protect the company from further damage. Richard collected the documents. Control of daily operations will remain with the existing management structure under revised oversight. One investor smiled with visible relief. So there will be no hostile takeover? I shook my head. I didn't save this company to destroy it. Claire lowered her face into her hands. The weight of those words reached her before anyone else. She finally understood. Everything I had done, every late night, every quiet sacrifice, every insult I accepted, none of it had been weakness. It had been love. The meeting ended slowly. People left one by one. Some offered handshakes. Others apologized without saying much. Margaret stopped in front of me. The woman who once measured people by money now struggled to lift her head. I judged you. A long pause followed. I was wrong. I nodded politely. There wasn't anything left to argue about. She walked away carrying regret that no apology could lighten. Soon only Claire and I remained inside the boardroom. The chairs stood empty. The projector had been turned off. Sunlight slipped through the tall windows. She stepped closer. Not close enough to touch me. Just close enough to remember. I found the ring. Her voice nearly broke. It was on my nightstand. I stayed quiet. I kept wondering why you left it there. Another slow breath. I thought you stopped loving me. My fingers rested on the back of a chair. I never stopped. Her eyes filled, but no tears fell. I just stopped believing love was enough. She nodded slowly. Every answer seemed to hurt more than the last. I thought Damien understood business better. I know. I thought you didn't care about success. I cared. A faint smile touched my face. I just cared about you more. She covered her mouth. The room felt smaller than before. Not because of anger, because of everything we had lost. She stood there for several seconds before asking the only question left. Was there ever a way to fix us? The words hung between us. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. 3 months changed everything. Not because life suddenly became easy. Because I finally stopped living for someone else's approval. Morning sunlight poured through the windows of my new apartment as I watered the small plants lining the balcony. The place still wasn't large. It didn't need to be. Every corner belonged to a life built on honesty instead of quiet sacrifice. The coffee maker hummed in the kitchen. Birds filled the park below with noise that sounded strangely peaceful. There were no unanswered arguments waiting for me. No heavy silence stretching across the dinner table. Only a simple morning and the freedom to enjoy it. My phone buzzed. Another message from Claire. Can we talk? Just once. The notification stayed on the screen. I locked the phone without answering. Some conversations arrived too late. The company had recovered faster than anyone expected. The merger with Damien's group had been canceled. New investors stepped in after the board completed a full financial review. The atmosphere inside the office felt different now. People greeted me instead of looking through me. Meetings focused on ideas instead of pride. Respect no longer depended on titles. It depended on actions. Olivia walked into my office carrying 2 folders. We finally received the audit report. She placed the documents on my desk before taking a seat across from me. Good news. The best kind. A small smile crossed her face. The investigation is finished. I opened the report. Every page confirmed what we already knew. Damien had approved false reports, hidden executive payments, and redirected company funds into consulting contracts that benefited only him. The evidence left no room for excuses. He'll face criminal charges. Olivia nodded. And civil claims. I closed the folder slowly. I never wanted revenge. I know. You wanted accountability. That word felt right. Not revenge. Accountability. There was an important difference. Margaret retired from the board only weeks after the investigation ended. Years of influence disappeared almost overnight. Nobody forced her to leave. She simply lost the trust she had spent decades building. One afternoon, she requested a meeting. Curiosity brought me to a quiet cafe near the office. She stood when I arrived. The confidence that once filled every room had softened into something quieter. Thank you for coming. I sat across from her. You wanted to talk? She nodded. I owe you more apologies than I can count. Her hands remained wrapped around a cup of untouched coffee. I judge people by money. A tired smile appeared. The strange part, she looked toward the window. The man with the most character was the one I valued the least. I didn't interrupt. I can't change what I did. No. I just wanted you to know that I finally understand. The words sounded honest. Not because they erased the past, because they accepted it. When we stood to leave, she offered her hand. I shook it, not to restart a relationship, to end an old resentment. Claire never stopped trying. Some mornings flowers waited outside my apartment. Other days a handwritten letter appeared beneath my door. None of them asked for another chance. They simply admitted truths she had ignored for years. One afternoon I agreed to meet her. Not because I wanted us back, because unfinished conversations can become heavy if left untouched forever. We met at the small riverside park where we used to spend lazy Sunday afternoons. She arrived early. The wind carried loose strands of her hair across her face. She looked thinner, quieter. The confident businesswoman I once admired had been replaced by someone still trying to understand herself. Thank you. Those were her first words. For coming. I sat beside her on the wooden bench. Neither of us rushed to fill the silence. She held something in both hands. The velvet ring box. I couldn't keep it. She placed it carefully between us. It never felt like mine. I rested my eyes on the box. The diamond remained untouched, exactly as I had left it. I went back to the apartment. Her voice became softer. It was empty. A slow breath escaped. I never realized how much of that place was actually you. I remembered those empty rooms, the missing books, the pale square where our photograph once hung. I thought success meant never slowing down. She looked across the river. I kept believing there would always be time for us later. Another pause. There wasn't. I nodded gently. No. She wiped one corner of her eye before any tears could fall. I'm not asking you to come back. The honesty surprised me. I already know that chapter is over. Her fingers remained on the ring box. I just hope one day you'll remember me for more than my worst mistakes. I thought about that for a long moment. The woman sitting beside me wasn't the same one who laughed while others mocked me. Pain had changed her. Regret had changed her, just as heartbreak had changed me. I'll remember everything. She slowly turned toward me. The good, another breath, and the bad. She accepted the answer with a quiet nod. No dramatic goodbye. No promises. When we stood, she left the ring box on the bench. I think it belongs to the past. She walked away without looking back. I never called after her. Life moved forward, not all at once. Little by little, Olivia and I spent more time working together. Sometimes meetings turned into coffee. Coffee turned into long walks after work. Long walks became easy conversations about books, family, and dreams that had nothing to do with business. She never treated me like a hero, never acted impressed by the investment or the headlines. She respected me because I listened, because I kept my word, because I showed up. That simple kind of respect felt more valuable than admiration built on secrets. One evening we stood on my apartment balcony watching the sunset. It's peaceful here. It is. You smile more. I laughed quietly. I noticed. She smiled too. I'm glad. There was no pressure, no rush to define anything. Some beginnings grow stronger when they aren't forced. Months later, I packed one final box inside my old office. The company no longer needed me involved every day. The new leadership had earned everyone's trust. Systems worked. People worked together. The business had finally become healthy enough to stand on its own. Richard shook my hand before leaving. You did the right thing. I almost didn't, but you did. Olivia waited by the door with my coat. Everything else had already been carried downstairs. Only one thing remained. My office key. I placed it carefully on the desk, the same way Damien once returned his. The difference was simple. He left because the truth caught him. I left because my work was finished. I switched off the lights. The office became quiet. Not empty. Complete. As I locked the door behind me, my phone vibrated one last time. Claire. The message was short. I hope your future is everything I failed to give you. Thank you for loving me when I didn't know how to love you back. Goodbye, Ethan. I read every word. A sad smile found its way onto my face. Not because I wanted to return, because some endings deserve kindness. My thumb rested on the screen for a moment. Then I deleted the message. The elevator doors opened. Fresh afternoon sunlight spilled through the building entrance. I stepped outside with nothing in my hands except my jacket. Nothing inside my heart except peace. The people who once called me useless had finally learned the truth. But by then, their opinions no longer mattered. The greatest victory was never proving them wrong. It was learning that my worth had never depended on whether they believed in me. I walked toward the future. This time, I never looked back.